Hey everyone, and welcome to my channel. So if you're tuning back in, welcome back. If you're new, welcome. I just have my notes here just because I love to talk and this keeps me organized and makes sure that I do not go off on tangents. So why I picked CUNY Law. So I picked CUNY Law for a couple of reasons. The first one being that it is a social justice focused school. I knew going into law school that I wanted to practice social justice. CUNY is one of the top rated social justice schools in the nation, and that feeds me into their amazing clinics. I personally want to practice elder law and estate planning, and CUNY has one of the top rated elder law clinics in the entire United States. It was formerly known as just the Elder Law Clinic, but now it is known as the Disability and Aging Justice Clinic. I also picked CUNY for some out-of-state programs that they offer. So one of them is the daily delegation, and what that is basically for a week you go to daily Texas, you go to a detention center and you work on some immigration files. Another program that they have is the Mississippi Project, similar to the daily delegation. You go down to Mississippi for a week and you give legal aid to people who have low income who otherwise would not be able to get legal aid. Some of the past topics that they've covered in Mississippi were workers' comp rights and things of that nature. Another reason I picked CUNY was because of their part-time program. So I'm a part-time evening student. I work full-time, and CUNY is really missioned in helping their part-time students get a full legal education and not stopping people who still want to go to law school but also work at the same time. CUNY also has some special internships that are strictly for part-time evening students, which I really liked because I thought that just proved their point about how much they care about their part-time students. CUNY also has really low in-state tuition, so it's about $15,000 a year. The average law school is anywhere between $30,000 to $40,000, so I save a lot of money by going to a school like CUNY, even though it is more or less ranked the same like a lot of the other schools. So it's a lot of bang for your buck. Because CUNY is a social justice focused school, it's easier to get student loan forgiveness. So you have to apply for student loan forgiveness. Just because you're at CUNY, you are not guaranteed student loan forgiveness. But when you apply for that and they see that you have gone to more or less a social justice focused school, you work in the public sector of law, it is easier to get that approval. I believe you get approved after paying 120 or 110 student loan payments. I'm not too sure. Because CUNY is in New York City and I live in New York City and I want to practice in New York City once I'm done with law school, they have really great connections with a bunch of city organizations. So a lot of students work at the Brooklyn Defender's Office, the Bronx Defender's Office, they work at the ACLU, or they work at the Legal Aid Society. So I picked CUNY because they have those connections, and I knew that after law school, I would be able to use them as resources. I think the most important reason also, besides them being social justice focused, is CUNY's bar passage rate. So bar passage rate is really important because that lets you know how well the school prepares students for the bar exam. I believe that the New York State average for bar passage rate is anywhere between 60 to 75%. CUNY students come in at 85%. So I knew that CUNY was really going to prepare me for the bar exam, which is something that's important to me because I have heard that bar prep is dreadful and I only want to take that exam once. So any way that I can optimize just passing it on the first time, the better. Now picking a law school. So I think one of the first things to consider is what kind of law do you want to study? There's corporate, there is environmental, there is government, there are a ton of different types of law to practice. So that leads me into geographically, where do you want to go? So for example, I knew I want to practice in New York City. I know that New York City has a lot of opportunities with elder law, so that's why I stayed in New York. But for example, I know that in Arizona, certain law schools have Native American law programs. So if you want to study something like Native American law, it would be best to look at a law school in the Southwest. Other things to consider when you're picking a law school is the rankings. Unfortunately, a lot of people put more weight on rankings than they should, but the truth is, if you want to work corporate, you need to be at a top rated school. They will not look at you unless you are in an Ivy 9 out of 10. I have a friend of mine who's at another law school, and they told me that they had a friend who had a full ride to St. John's, very bright, top of her class. She applied for a corporate internship and they basically laughed in her face and told her, if you don't go to Ivy Leagues, we can't accept you. The girl in turn transferred out of St. John's even though she had a full ride for law school and went to Cornell. Once she got to Cornell, they were able to give her the position. When I was looking at law schools, I was really fixed on the rankings. I read a lot of articles, I did a lot of research on it, and there was one article that I really liked. And one thing in particular that they said, which I'm going to read for you right now, was on the reputation and the rankings. So they said the reputation your school has among your peers only means so much. Maybe you can go to the so-called worst law school in the area and be part of a class that changes the school's reputation. It's got to start somewhere. So I think that's important because the truth is everyone thinks that their law school is the best one. So that's something to keep in mind, that the truth is it's really not important what your peers think. It's more about what organizations think. And in the end, change has to start somewhere. So like they said, you could be at the worst ranked law school right now, but for all you know, you could be the class that really changes that. Like I mentioned before, bar passage rate is really important. It basically determines how well the school prepares you to take your bar exam at the end of law school. That leads me into going away for law school or staying in state. If you plan on practicing in the state that you live in, it is probably best to stay rather than go away. On the contrary, going away for law school is a good idea because if you have plans of moving out of state, this is probably one of the last times that you could pick up and go before your career starts and you're really grinding. Another thing with picking in-state or out-of-state schools is the tuition. The tuitions are different. If you're an in-state student, it will be cheaper. If you're coming from out of state, it will be more expensive. Think about the clinics that the school offers. Again, I picked CUNY because they had a really good clinic with elder law. You're going to spend the majority of your life at the law school itself for the next couple of years. So I think it's really important to visit the law school, get an idea of the sense of community there, the faculty, and very importantly, the commute. If you're obviously dorming in the school, the commute isn't an issue, but for people who are part-time students and commute back and forth, or even if you're a full-time student who commutes, I think it's always important to think about your travel time because traveling does affect your quality of life. Think about your support system. So for me, I know mine is at home. That's why I wanted to stay within New York City. I have my friends and I have my family here. Law school is difficult. I don't know if I necessarily wanted to be thrusted into a new environment, new school, and all of that at once. I also think about the alumni of the school. The alumni tells you a lot because it gives you an idea of what career path they took post-law school and what you could possibly be doing post-law school. Another extremely important thing to consider when thinking about law school, because chances are is you have undergrad debt, is how much debt are you willing to accumulate during law school. Law school is expensive. The average tuition rate is anywhere between $30,000 to $40,000 a year. Some of the really top schools are well into $60,000. Think about, can you realistically pay off this debt? There are a lot of people who just think, well, it's a loan, it's not that big of a deal. And what happens is once they graduate, they get smacked in the face with how much money they actually really owe and how difficult it's going to be to realistically pay that off. And on top of the tuition, there's also costs like living, books, food, transportation, all of that good stuff. Really think about what you're willing to take on at this time. Think about how many schools you're applying to. Law school applications are expensive. I had the fee waiver, so my first 6 were free, but there were some other schools I wanted to apply to who I did not have a fee waiver for. So what I did was I reached out to admissions. I was like, hey, I had the fee waiver. Unfortunately, they only gave me 6 schools. However, I'm still very interested in applying to your school. Do you mind please giving me a fee waiver? You will see as you go along the process, being kind goes a really long way. So as long as you write a really kind and respectful email to someone just asking for a helping hand, 9 out of 10, they'll be more than willing to help you. And that's what I encountered when I was asking for fee waivers. So a lot of the schools had no issues because I already had the LSAC waiver. It was obviously already investigated by LSAC that there was some type of need. A lot of New York schools off the bat have free applications. So I know St. John's had a free one, New York Law School, Brooklyn Law, all of those schools all had free applications. One very important thing that a financial aid advisor told me at my school about debt is, do you want to live like a student now or live like a student for the rest of your life? So what she meant by that was basically, do you want to really budget yourself now and take out the least amount of loans as possible so that when you graduate, you have the least amount of debt and can really pay it off quick and enjoy that lawyer salary? Or do you want to take out all these loans and then be stuck with a ball and chain at the end of law school trying to pay over $100,000 worth of debt while trying to get your life together, like buying a house, having kids, and just adulting? So with that being said, I always think to myself, pain is temporary. If you have to eat ramen soup for lunch all the time, eat ramen soup for lunch so that you can drive a Benz later in life. That kind of thing. I personally follow an Instagram account called Zero Based Budget. She herself was a law student. She's an attorney now, and she documented her whole journey of paying well over $100,000 off in, I think, 4 years. When I was looking at law schools, tuition was obviously something I really considered, and the debt. The debt is something that unfortunately deters a lot of people from law school, but it's important to do your research and really budget. The article I mentioned before also highlighted a really important concept when thinking about law school tuition. So it says, the effect that your law school has on your wallet is an objective fact. If the schools are ranked the same, basically pick the cheapest one. Otherwise, it's like buying a Hyundai for the price of a Porsche. There's nothing wrong with driving a Hyundai, but the problem is being charged for an expensive high-end sports car when you want an affordable, serviceable automobile. I picked CUNY because of the sense of community. I did not get that feeling of this crazy cutthroat environment. People are very helpful at CUNY and everyone is very embedded in the mission. So everyone, thanks for tuning in. I hope this helped you. I hope it could give you some guidance on picking a law school. I hope you got a really good idea of why I picked my law school. Please don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe down below. Check me out on Instagram at Courthouse Chica. And till next time, thanks for watching.